Rain drifted over Midtown like a thin gray curtain. Taxi lights smeared the streets, and every pane of glass held a copy of the city inside it. On the top floor of the Meridian Urban Group Tower, a cake sat under meeting room lights, its candles unlit, its frosting stiff. Someone had piped "Happy Birthday, Lucas" in bright blue script. The handwriting was careful and distant, like a note from a stranger. Lucas Grant. 37 stepped out of the elevator into a crowd of well-dressed staff who tried to look spontaneous. Someone started a quick chorus of "Happy Birthday" that died after the second line. A junior assistant lifted a party hat and set it down again. It was a good cake. It was not a good moment. "Thanks," Lucas said, gentle but flat. "Get some rest. Go home. Be with your people." He shook a few hands, let the congratulations pass over him, like rain over a windbreaker, and pressed the elevator call button. The doors closed. No one followed. The candles stayed cold. Outside, the rain had steadied to a fine mist that dampened hair but did not soak clothes. Lucas did not open an umbrella. He put his hands in the pockets of his dark coat and walked south without plan. He liked walking on nights like this because everything looked like it was rethinking itself. Neon hummed softer. Windows glowed with dinners and televisions and people who knew one another. Far above his penthouse windows were dark because he had left them that way on purpose. The city was full of noise. His spaces were always quiet. He crossed from bright blocks into older ones. Steel and mirrors gave way to brick and chain link. Signs flickered. Paint peeled. He passed a shuttered diner that used to be open all night when he was an intern. He passed a corner store where the owner used to know his name. He passed a block where Meridian now owned every lot. One of those lots held the bones of a tenement in a chain-link fence. Plans called it West District Phase 1. Around the corner, an elevated train held up the sky on rusted girders. Lucas paused under the drip of the tracks and listened to the distant pulse of trains and the closer rhythm of rain. He did not hate his life. He had built it. He knew what it had cost. He also knew why he disliked birthdays. The year his mother died, a week after baking him a lopsided cake and singing off-key in their kitchen, he learned that some days cannot be rewired by will. After that, his father remarried, and Lucas went to a boarding school 2 states away. The first year, he waited for someone to remember. The second, he pretended to forget. By the third, he truly did. A streak of color tugged at his eye. On the sidewalk, a folding table stood under a corrugated awning, covered by a loud floral cloth. Plastic cups, a jar of daisies, a cardboard bakery box. A little girl in sneakers sat on a milk crate with a paper crown she had made herself. A woman in a thin jacket stood beside her, pouring juice and laughing at something small. Lucas would have kept walking. Then the girl saw him and lifted her hand like a traffic cop, as if stopping a stranger in the rain were as natural as blinking. She hopped off the crate, almost slipping in a puddle, and trotted toward him with both hands cupped around a square of chocolate on a napkin. The napkin had a drawing of a sun in blue crayon. The sun had a wide smile and long lines for rays. "Hi," the girl said. "Today is my birthday. I am 4. My name is Mia. My mom says birthdays are for sharing. I saved you a piece." Lucas smiled without meaning to. The brownie was crooked and perfect. "Thank you, Mia," he said. "That is very kind." "It is okay," she said, serious as a judge. "We have more." She pointed at the table. The woman looked up and met Lucas's eyes. She had brown hair pulled into a low knot and a face that held tiredness and warmth at the same time. I am Nora Bennett, she said. Do not mind her. She thinks every stranger needs cake. He almost corrected her. Not cake, he thought. A reason. But he did not say it. He looked down at the brownie again. The napkin had grease spots spreading like small islands. He could smell cocoa and sugar. He could smell a memory. What a coincidence, he heard himself say. It happens to be my birthday, too. Mia gasped as if he had told her the moon was made of peppermints. She spun on her heel and announced to the air, "Mom, it is his birthday, too." Then she looked back at Lucas, pleased that the math of the world had balanced for once. Under the rusty awning, they lit one stubby candle and then blew it out because the wind was not going to let it stay. Lucas ate the brownie. It was denser than anything in the Meridian cafeteria and better. He said thank you like he meant it because he did. When he turned to leave, Mia called out, "Happy birthday, Mr. Brownie." The name landed on him softly and stayed. The next morning, Lucas arrived at the tower earlier than usual. He stood in the lobby longer than usual, too. The marble floors shone. People came and went with the weight of their calendars on their faces. He felt a lightness he did not trust. At lunch, he stopped at a store and bought a kid's jacket, soft and warm in lavender. He added a box of crayons, 2 coloring books with animals on the covers, and a bottle of children's vitamins. He put everything in a brown paper bag and wrote, "For Mia," on a small blank card. No signature. He left the bag with System, the receptionist. "A favor for a friend," he said. She nodded in the way receptionists know to nod when a CEO is being vague. That afternoon, reviewing routine building logs on his screen, Lucas saw the lobby camera feed. He watched Nora and Mia come in. He watched the receptionist slide the bag across the desk. Nora opened it. He saw her lift the jacket and run her thumb over the lining. He saw her see the vitamins, the crayons, the books. He saw gratitude rise and then something else. She closed the bag again carefully, as if it were porcelain. She carried it back to the desk. The camera mic picked up her voice. "Please tell whoever left this that we are grateful," she said. "And please tell them we are okay to earn what we need. I want my daughter to grow up proud." "Thank you." She smiled. It was not a smile that said no. It was a smile that said, "Not like this." She took Mia's hand and left. Some refusals bruise. This one did not. It taught. Lucas watched the screen a second longer and then closed the file. Saturday, the guard called him. "The little one is downstairs, sir. You told us to let her visit the rooftop garden if it was safe." 10 minutes later, Mia ran barefoot on the small square of lawn between raised beds and waved at a butterfly. Wind moved the lavender. Nora stepped into the garden with the look of someone surprised by sunlight in an unexpected place. She glanced from Mia to the view to Lucas. He had no bag, no props, only 2 hands and a plain hello. "I thought she might like to see the butterflies," he said. "If this is uncomfortable, say the word, and I am gone." Nora watched her daughter pluck a dandelion and hold it like treasure. "Thank you," she said. "But I need to say a thing. Something small for you can be everything to us. If we accept everything from a stranger, we give away a piece of ourselves." Lucas nodded. "Then maybe I can try to be less of a stranger." "Maybe," she said, without looking at him. She was busy watching a child climb into joy with both feet. After they left, he stayed and walked the stony path slowly. He remembered a kitchen that smelled of cinnamon and a song that wandered in and out of tune. He remembered a door closing behind him at a school with polo shirts and long halls. He set his palm on the warm wood of a planter and felt the thrum of something old coming back. Monday began with fresh coffee and ended with trouble. Meridian was hosting an investor briefing that week, and everyone wore the look they wore when their days were measured in precision. Around noon, the building security office logged an incident. A rare vintage watch on loan from a partner had gone missing from a display case in the interim chief financial officer's office. The interim CFO was Owen Briggs, a man with a perfect haircut and a hunger that made rooms colder. The access logs showed Nora's badge among the earliest in that corridor. A supervisor brought her to security. The room had white lights and the smell of plastic. A camera blinked. "We need to check your bag," the supervisor said. She opened it. Lunch container library book, a folded drawing with stick figures holding hands. No watch. "You were the only person in the area before the item was reported missing," he said. "I did not take anything," Nora said. "There were prior disciplinary notes on your record," he said. "Those were a mistake," she said. Her voice was even. She was not calm. She was steady. "We have to suspend you pending review," he said. At that exact time, Mia was being walked across the lobby by a daycare helper who loved watching her face change when she saw elevators. She saw her mother across the atrium, shoulders squared as if bracing wind. She ran with a drawing in her hand. Nora knelt, hugged her, and stood. The staff around them looked away. Few disliked Nora. Fewer wanted the trouble of liking her openly. When Lucas heard, he left a meeting before anyone could finish a slide. He took the stairs 2 at a time to security and asked for the corridor feeds from 6 to 11. He watched Nora push her cart, gloved and swift. He watched her pass the CFO door. He watched time move. At 7:22, Owen Briggs walked into frame, used his badge, entered the office, opened the case, removed the watch, slid it into his jacket, and left. Lucas paused the frame when Owen adjusted his tie in the hallway mirror. It was not only the theft, it was the ease. He called legal. He called HR. He told them to suspend Owen and secure electronic devices. He told them to reinstate Nora with an apology in writing and in person. He told them to change the policy so that no employee could be disciplined without a second look at footage and facts by a group that did not report to the same chain as the accuser. He told them to do it quickly and cleanly. For once, they did. At dusk, he stood in a dim hallway on the 3rd floor of a walk-up in a neighborhood Meridian's brochures like to call emerging. He knocked. The door opened. Nora stood barefoot in socks, sweater sleeves pushed to her elbows. Her face showed surprise, first then guardedness, then something softer that he could not name. She stepped aside. "Come in," she said. Nora's apartment smelled like toast and soap. It was 1 room and a small kitchen, with a futon against a wall and a wobbly table under the only window. Books for children sat on a makeshift shelf made of 2 crates. Drawings were taped to the wall. In one, 3 stick figures stood under a sun. The tallest wore long shoes. The smallest had a circle for hair and a smile too big for the face. "I came to apologize," Lucas said, "for the mistake, for the way it happened, for the system that let it happen." Nora poured tea into a chipped mug and set it in front of him. She did not say it was fine. She did not say it was not. She pulled a chair out for him and called into the small back room. Mia burst out with her ponytails lopsided and her socks mismatched. "Mr. Brownie," she shouted and climbed onto the chair on his left before anyone could tell her to use her inside voice. She set a napkin with a sun drawing at his place like it mattered. Dinner was chicken soup and toasted bread and apple slices. It was humble and exact. Conversation tilted and corrected itself. Lucas described the rooftop garden. Mia described a boy who stole her blue crayon and later gave her the green one. Nora listened more than she asked, and when she asked, she did not pry. Afterward, Mia drew a new picture. The three figures under the sun held hands. Below, she wrote, "Our family," in letters that did not yet understand lines. Nora started to scold, then stopped, because Lucas's face changed. He did not know that someone was watching him change or that he looked younger when he did. "I have been in the habit of building big things," he said to Nora when he stood to leave. "Tomorrow I am going to build a small thing we should have had. Legal support for service staff. A standing review board that is not your supervisor's friend. Amenities that treat you as people we are proud to stand with, not shadows. This is not charity. It is maintenance. Of our own house." Nora nodded once. "Thank you," she said. She meant the policy. She also meant dinner. He did not know which one he needed more to hear. At the door, he hesitated. The hallway smelled like damp plaster and old heat. "Do you need anything?" he asked, and immediately wished he had asked a better question. "We need to keep what we have," she said. Then she smiled, small and real. "See you." The wind came up 2 nights later and dragged a torn plastic bag down the street like a ghost. Nora had stayed late for a spill on the 18th floor that required more than paper towels. She missed the last bus and walked the 12 blocks home with her hands in her pockets and her shoulders set against the gusts. The streetlights flickered. The alley before her building held a slice of shadow. Footsteps followed. Not fast. Intent. She turned. A tall man in a hooded jacket stepped out of the dark. His face was thinner than she remembered. His voice was the same. "You think you can forget Nora," he said. "You still owe me." Kyle Monroe. A chapter she had closed with tape when all she had was tape. Years ago, he had borrowed her name for a loan and left. He had also left a habit of returning at the worst times and trying to collect dignity. "I do not owe you anything," she said. "Not anymore." He grabbed her wrist hard enough to bruise tomorrow. "What?" he said. "Your rich boss will help you now." He stepped closer. His breath smelled like last night's liquor. There was the sound of a paper bag dropping and a pair of shoes hitting asphalt. Lucas did not think. He hit Kyle in the shoulder like a safety in a game he had never played, and both men went down. Kyle scrambled up with a curse and swung wild. Lucas did not miss by much. His shoe slid on wet concrete, and his shoulder slammed into the edge of a stoop. The pain rang clean. Kyle ran. The anger in his run was not brave. It was empty. He disappeared around the corner, and the alley breathed again. Nora's hands shook as she pulled Lucas to his feet. "Let me see," she said, and the 2 words held both command and care. She called a neighbor to watch Mia. She flagged a taxi. In the ER, the lights were too bright, and the coffee was too old, and the nurse was kind. A bandage circled Lucas's upper arm. His suit jacket was in a plastic bag under the chair. The doctor said it was a mild shoulder sprain. Rest. No heroics. Mia arrived on the hip of a neighbor hair-rumpled sweater wrong side out. She took one look at the bandage and climbed into the chair beside Lucas like she was reading a diagram for how to sit next to a hurt person. "You are not crying," she said softly. "I am okay," he said. He thought he was telling the truth. She put her small hand on his cheek the way kids do when they learn what comfort is for. "If you want to cry, you can cry," she whispered. "Do not worry. You are not alone now. You have us." Something unlocked. It did not break. It opened. Tears came the way rain comes after a long pressure has held the sky too long. He did not look away. He let the quiet do its work. On his other side, Nora rested her hand on his hand. She did not give him words. She gave him a place to be. They sat until morning murmured at the windows. The doctor checked the bandage one more time and told Lucas to take the day off. In the lobby, Nora stopped by the doors. "I do not know what I am doing," he said. "Me neither," she said, and smiled with the corners of her mouth. "Maybe we do not have to know. Maybe it is enough that we are not doing it alone. A year can be a list, a line of small decisions that add up to a place you can stand." Meridian opened a quiet legal fund for hourly staff and printed the number in break rooms. A small child care space appeared on the mezzanine for people who worked odd hours. A committee that reported to no department chair reviewed complaints. HR learned how to say, "I am sorry," and mean it. The rooftop garden got 2 more benches and a shade sail for summer. Lucas traveled less and looked up more. He talked with the maintenance team about which floors needed new chairs because the old ones hurt backs. He kept the penthouse but spent more time in a kitchen where the table wobbled until he fixed it, and where the light through the window made dust look like slow snow. He learned how to make chili that did not offend people who actually knew how to make chili. He learned how to braid a child's hair without pulling. He learned where the extra batteries lived and how long a night can be when a kid is sick. Nora's apartment changed. Cracks were patched and painted. A real bookshelf replaced the crates. Curtains hung straight. The rug was still second-hand. It was clean. Pride lives comfortably with second-hand when second-hand has been chosen, not forced. On an afternoon that smelled like cinnamon and toast, Mia stood on a chair and taped a paper banner across the room. "Happy Birthday" in block letters sloped from left to right like a cheerful hill. Nora smoothed a blue dress that she wore only on days that asked her to remember she had always been exactly this person. Lucas stood on another chair with a roll of tape and judged the angle. "Straight enough," he said. They lit candles on a small round cake with strawberries. Nora looked at the 2 faces across the table. The tall one had learned to fall asleep on a couch with a book in his lap. The small one had learned to write all the letters in her name in the right order. Together, they looked like a photograph you find in a drawer and cannot believe you took because you cannot believe you were lucky enough to be there when it was taken. Mia blew out the candles and immediately cut a slice that was too big and collapsed on the plate. She lifted it in both hands and set it on a napkin that held a new sun drawing. "I saved you a piece, Dad," she said. The word did not crash. It landed and rang once, pure and low. Lucas's eyes got bright all at once, and he looked down at the plate to steady himself. He did not steady. He did not need to. He looked up at Nora, who was already looking at him like this was both a surprise and the least surprising thing. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. No dramatic speech, no rehearsed lines. He did not kneel because the chair would have wobbled. He opened the box and showed a simple band that caught the candlelight. "I used to think I knew how to build," he said. "Turns out I was very good at building walls. You showed me how to build a place to live." Nora nodded because the truth does not need decoration. "Yes," she said. Mia squealed and flung her arms around them both, getting frosting on everyone's sleeves. Outside traffic went on doing what traffic does. In the kitchen, something settled that had been moving too fast for too long. Later, after dishes were rinsed and dried, and the floor was swept, and the banner was rolled and saved to use again. Next year, Nora tucked Mia into bed and sang a song that did not have words. Lucas stood in the doorway and listened, because listening to people you love do small things is one of the better uses of time. When Nora came back into the kitchen, she leaned against the counter with a mug of tea. The night outside the window was a sheet of dark with a few tears in it, where lights showed through. Did you ever think, she said, that it all started with a cheap brownie under a rusty awning? I think it started with 2 words, he said. Saved for. Someone saved a seat for me at a table, then a small piece of cake, then, without warning, a life. He reached for her hand. He did not promise the world. He promised the night after a hard day and the morning after that. He promised to be there when the homework did not make sense, and when the landlord needed to call, and when the car would not start. He promised to save a seat the way someone once saved one for him. On the wall above the new bookshelf hung a drawing. 3 figures under a sun. In the corner, a house with a door and a heart on the roof. Below it, letters very carefully formed by a child who now knew lines and stayed inside them most of the time. Home. The city kept breathing. Elevators crossed in shafts. A bus sighed at the curb. Upstairs, a neighbor laughed at a TV show. In the little kitchen, the last candle on the cake guttered and went out. Not because the night took it, but because it had already done its work. Lucas stacked the plates and turned off the light. The dark held them for a moment in a way that felt not like absence, but like quiet. When he opened the door to the bedroom, Mia looked up sleepily and asked if he had to work late tomorrow. He said he would be back for dinner. He said it the way you put a thing on a calendar, as if it were a meeting with the most important people in the world. Because it was. He stood a second longer, watching the slow rise and fall of a child at the end of a day, and the steady, smaller rise and fall of the cat they had somehow ended up adopting. He thought about the man who used to come home to an empty penthouse and watch the city blink without blinking back. He thought about roofs and awnings and afternoons that smell like toast, and how the math of a life can change with a few new numbers. Then he went to the kitchen to set the coffee for the morning. He wrote a note for Mia's lunchbox that said "Good job" on the banner. You spelled every word right. He drew a silly sun with long lines for rays. It looked familiar. He left the note where she would find it. He put the ring box on the windowsill where the light would catch it at noon. He washed the last spoon. He turned out the last light. When he returned to the doorway, Nora was waiting, and the look they shared was the kind that would make sense to almost anyone who has ever saved a place for someone else and then watched them sit down.